Okay, we've prayed and our meeting is officially in session. So let's just give each other short 1 to 2 sentence introductions of exactly what it is that you're doing as far as gardening uh, and gardening for Shalom briefly. And and if you want to comment on the passage already, or you want to wait till after we do the introductions, either way is fine with me. I will just start and say, my name is Debbie Ray, and I live in Homer Glen, which is southwest suburbs of Chicago. And my dad, who was born on a farm in Ukraine, raised me in Chicago with a mini farm in this little lot in the backyard. And I think as an adult, that was what originally drew me to want to grow food. And once I began doing that, I began writing and speaking about it too. And so I'm a blogger and speaker, giving a talk on edible flowers Monday night in Palos Heights Library if anyone wants to come. Um, but and as I believe I've told all of you the story of why I formed this network as out of what's come out of my studies in global urban ministries and transformational leadership. So that's what's brought me here.
My name is Rod Beery, and Pam joined me. We live on some farmland in Oswego, which is just west of Naperville, and so we're probably farming, gardening between 1 and 2 acres, and we grow organic vegetables and donate them to 2 food pantries in the Aurora area, the Aurora Interfaith and the Marie Wilkinson food pantries. And they serve between the two of them probably a couple thousand families a week, I think, during the season. So the volume that we were talking about, we peaked a few years ago at 26,000 pounds. Last year we did 12,000 pounds of, like I say, fresh organic vegetables that we ship over. Each pantry will send a truck once a week, and we'll harvest what we harvest. My motive, I grew up in the Fishtown section of Philadelphia, which was an inner city thing, but I've always had a love for gardening. And if you know anything about the organic movement, a lot of it came out of the Philadelphia area with the Rodale group, organic gardening, and that just impacted me. But my motivation for growing the food has always been I'm a prepper. I want to be able to grow my own food. And my late wife and I bought land outside of Naperville in 1995 and moved out here in 1997. And I got into the food part. We were both gardeners at that time. But anyway, she passed away several years ago. Pam and I married 5 years ago. Our fifth anniversary is coming up in March. And she has very enthusiastically joined me in the quest. We think it's a worthy ministry, and we enjoy it. So anyway. You need anything else?
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm going to
Okay.
ask Aaron because you said you might have to go off camera with a child there too. So
Sure. I'm Erin Bradley. I work at Navarro Farm in Frankfurt. We have 92 raised garden beds. I'm actually working on our layout and planting schedule this morning. Um, so we offer programming for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We have what we call a farmer program. So those young adults and adults come in and do agricultural experiences with our garden beds. We also have animals on site, chickens, bunnies, goats, pigs, dogs. So we run a program that goes right now. It goes through spring through the fall. We're actually building greenhouses this year that we're hoping are done by fall so that we can extend our programming year round in those greenhouses and then eventually get so we're completely self-sustaining and doing our own seed collection, everything from seed to harvest. So that's kind of the plan as we head into 2025. Damien and Sherry Navarro are the founders of the farm. They have a child that has Down syndrome, which inspired them to start Navarro Farm. We hold events at the farm for farmers throughout the year, including once a month we have worship in the barn, where we bring in singers and just have kind of like an open praise time for anyone who wants to join. I think that's all for now. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Who else?
I can go.
Great.
I'm Esther. I live in Chicago and I grew up in Lockport where my dad and my mom, we had our home on a lot and then they owned the lot next door on both sides of our property. So on one side, we had a span of about 150 feet from the backyard to the front yard. And in that space for about 10 feet wide, 150 feet, the span of the land, we would garden there. And so with my dad, I would garden like peppers and tomatoes and things like that. And then during the harvest season, we'd have like an assembly line of myself and my 8 other siblings. And the older ones would be doing the knife work and the younger ones would be doing the cleaning work and then putting them in the jars. And then my mom and dad would be boiling the jars to jar our food for the winter. So in the winter, we barely shopped at grocery stores. I don't hardly ever remember, except for meat and things like that. We didn't have chicken, so eggs, of course, and bread and things like that. But we would have our own vegetables, jarred green beans and peppers, and we even had preservatives for our homemade biscuits that my mom would make us for breakfast every morning. I would go in our basement and shop the aisles of jarred food that we would prepare all like summer and fall. And I specifically remember that. And then I remember when the jars just suddenly went away. It's like we got older, dad needed to work more, mom needed to work more, and then more children. And so it was just like, it kind of went away. The garden eventually went away where everything just became about lawn and having a beautiful green lawn. And then I didn't see really anything about gardening anymore until I got to high school at Lockport Township High School. I was taking a step up program from my elementary school to the township. And they had this massive greenhouse in the back of the school. And that was the first time I'd seen a greenhouse. And I was just, my mouth was just God, like, what is this big glass building in the back of the school? So I got to meet the horticulture instructor there. Her name is Miss Donna Timer. She'll forever be my hero, and I love her so much. We've just recently reconnected. Actually, I've been looking for her for years, and we've reconnected. So she was my high school horticulture instructor. And then she was retiring when I was graduating high school in the year 2000, aging myself. And she was going away, but she got offered a position at Joliet Junior College. And I followed her to Joliet Junior College because that was my senior year. So when I graduated, I went to Joliet Junior College and followed her there to get a certification in horticulture and then started floral design and landscape architecture and then agriculture. Then I transferred to Parkland College by way of their Pathways program through University of Illinois to continue that education. And it was then that my mother suffered a stroke, and I was the next oldest adult with 5 siblings still younger than me in elementary and high school. So I rescinded the offer and came back home and started working to scale corporate America. But I just remember the days being in my corporate office, looking out the window, jealous of the landscapers who were playing in the dirt while I'm in my office doing numbers and running data. So I just have always stayed connected with something floral. So I've been doing weddings and I've been doing events at churches and they just like change out their flowers in their homes, or people who would reach out because they know that my dad was a gardener, your daughter gardens, and she does flowers and things like that. So I've always stayed connected with the green space. And then just recently, my eldest brother, who worked for Harvey Brooks Foundation at the time, said they were looking to expand their garden program. And so I wrote a full year curriculum for that program. And initially, I just helped them to pick out the vegetables and the selection for their community garden. And then they were like, okay, but now we need someone here, like on hand, like hands on deck to help us to do the installation. So I came to do the installation. Then they're like, okay, now we need to teach the children how to grow the food. And I was like, I'll teach the children to grow the food. And so they're like, okay, and now we need. And so we just keep kind of just building on whatever they need. I'm happy to fill because it's a green space and I love it. I still do my work here in Chicago for the most part, but it's remote and then I'm able to just work my schedule so that I'm able to commute back and forth right now to Joliet. I do that class for them twice a week to grow their community garden. And the children will harvest during our harvest season on Tuesday, and we give it away through our food pantry on Wednesday. So whatever the children harvest in class for the after school program Tuesday, it's given to the people who drive through to get their groceries and fresh produce from us on Wednesday. They grab the things from there. So I'm very happy to do that. I'm trying to get more connected with the locations here in Chicago, because right around my neighborhood, I walk around community gardens all the time and I kind of stalk them to see who's in there so that I could get connected with them and work more with the people that are right here in my back door, and then not as much commuting back and forth to Joliet, but I do still, I love it ever so much. The children are so smart and I just love to see what they pick up. Sometimes I will ask a question as if I don't know. And I love to see the children's excitement when they take over and teach me everything that they know. I'm just like, you guys get it. And I love it. So I'm just so grateful to be in that space.
Love it. Let's see. Linda, Julie, or Sarah?
I can go. My name is Julie. I have something in common with Rod in that my family is from Philadelphia and I was raised in Delaware, although originally from Florida. My mother did not like vegetables, therefore we were never served them at home. The most exotic vegetable we would ever have would be lettuce, tomato, and a can of green beans, or those LeSueur peas. That is it, you know. So I got into well, actually, I'll never forget the first time I went to some little restaurant with a friend and tried lettuce on a sandwich. And I went, oh, this isn't too bad. That was the first vegetable I ever tried on my own. But I loved growing things. I always thought things were fascinating to grow. One of the first books I remember reading that was an adult book in my parents' house was on plants. And I would go around and identify things in the house plants and the neighborhood stuff. So trying things and growing things, you know, I had neighbors who taught me about how to save seeds with marigolds. My best friend, eventually, his father was from the Netherlands. He taught me about tulips. So I really had to consider this passion on my own. I should have probably majored in plant science when I was in college, but uh, being that my whole little narrow world was just Delaware, there was no real development in the sense of, well, if you get a degree out of horticulture here, this is where you're going to go to work. You're going to work at Southern States or you're going to work at this vegetable stand, you know, that kind of thing. So I didn't pursue enough horticultural study. Fast forward a number of years, my husband and I bought a 2-acre property in Middletown, Delaware, and we enjoyed our vegetables and our fruit trees. And we had a 1/4-acre vegetable garden. I had 8 raised beds of herbs and all kinds of other stuff. We had chickens and some rabbits. And then we got transferred back here to Chicago area. I'm in Bolingbrook temporarily for 5 years, which kept getting renewed. And we've been here for 30 years. So I needed to find a way to grow all the stuff my husband and I did, all the stuff that we like to grow on a larger scale that we don't have the right sun aspects in our yard, as well as space. So we tried a community garden in Downers Grove for a couple years, which worked. And then I met a friend who had a 2-acre property. She and her husband had a nursery in Plainfield, and we started gardening with them. And we gardened on their property for a good 10 years, sharing food with the food bank as well. I got involved a little bit for a couple of years, but it was right before COVID, with the community garden at St. Dominic's Church in Bolingbrook with Barb Kozlowski. And that's how I was referred to Debbie, was through her. And the first year, I think, was 2018, which was good. 2019, we had less volunteers. 2020, the garden didn't even get started until the middle of the summer, only because I said, if we don't clear up these weeds, even if we do them individually, we're going to have nothing that we can work with next year. And then people were still afraid to garden in 21. So we worked out a scheme where we each had a day that we went and did certain things. But our our people, again, we had less people and they were much older. In my early to mid 60s here, I was the youngest person in the group. So the watering was a huge situation, because the hose, we had, I would say, probably 9 to 10 hoses that were hooked together that had to be run all the way up to the front of the church. And that was too difficult for the other people to haul back and forth. So we started a situation where we had tubs all around the edge of the garden. And two of us would fill those tubs every week, and people could water the rows with watering cans. And it became too difficult for a lot of the people to lift the watering cans. So at that point, Barb had a health issue, moved in with her daughter, and no one took the garden over. So there's a beautiful potential there at the church, but no one is willing to take it over or become real involved. So I'm kind of back to gardening in my yard and just trying to see how other people in bigger areas work out a watering system, motivating, working with all different ages, et cetera, in case I ever want to get this started up at the church. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying my own garden, and we did rent a plot in Bolingbrook's community garden for the first time this year. So we at least I'll be able to have a bigger spot for full sun, but it's only 10 by 10. So that's what we've been doing.
Great. Is that the same community, the garden that's at St. Damian's?
No, I don't. I'm not aware of St. Damian's.
No, not St. Damian. Oh, wait. Oh,
I
never mind.
was, I was with St. Dominic, and that's how somehow you and Barb found each other.
That's
And
right.
she referred you to me, and that was like the year or so before, but it was still when nobody was meeting, etc. So, but our group of about 20 people who were interested when I got into it, Barb had done that garden for a good 15 years, and it was very successful. But it was only self-serving. It never, they didn't, if they had overflow, they would give it to the parish, but it was only for the people who garden there. They didn't give to the food pantry, and they didn't give to the church in general. And so I was kind of looking for, I like the aspect of donating. When I had the big garden with our friends in Plainfield, we gave, a couple £1,000 of produce a year to the West Suburban Food Pantry. And of course, did stuff for our own good. But, we had so many that we were able to share. But so.
Cool. But is this a different community garden in Bolingbrook that you're in now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at Hidden Lakes. They've had it for a couple of years. I know the Bolingbrook Garden Club, more members are involved in it, because last year I tried to get a plot and they were all gone. And this year they had a couple open. They only had 10 open when they contacted me. So it seems to be a regular group of people where a lot of them are the garden club. I'm not involved with the Bolingbrook's Garden Club, but I'm sure there's other community members. It's just that if you had it last year, you have first come, first served this year, and people are holding on to their spots. So
Yeah.
they
My
have
husband
big.
grew up in Bolingbrook, so
Oh,
it's
did you? Yeah.
interesting to me. My
Yeah.
husband did, and his mom still lives there.
Okay. Yeah. It's
Um,
over at Hidden Lakes. It's a plot of land over there, so
yeah.
it's pretty close to us. The closest community garden that we've had access to between Downers Grove and Plainfield. So we're really looking forward to being literally in our backyard. But the St. Dominic's one still kind of sticks in the back of my mind because we invested time and stuff in it. And but with today's, it's a whole different staff of priests and all who work there, and with Bolingbrook having some water issues with pricing, it was always free. The church allowed us to garden and use as much water, et cetera, as we needed. I don't think that would be the case now. I don't think it would be fair to be the case because of the cost of water. And so I don't think this year would be a year to get started on it, but it's still always lurking in the back of my mind because I had invested time in it for a couple of years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Sarah has appeared again. You want to share what you're doing?
Sure. Laura's probably going to chime in. She keeps hearing all your wonderful ideas and just is opting out of napping. So my husband and I pastor a church in Moni, and we are on 5 acres. We have about, I think we have 8 boxes right now, garden boxes. And we have a playground area, and we are looking this year to start a children's garden that's all edible plants and things where they kind of create their own space. So I'm super excited to talk to you, Esther, about what you've been doing. And then we purchased a building in town that is